Hello lovelies. If you notice anything different, that would be my mic, and also I apologize for not posting in a while, but with the subject matter that you will soon learn that I stumbled on, you will understand why I needed to take a wee teensy little bit of a break, because I have delved into corners of the internet that were very mainstream, YouTube channels that everybody knew, family channels that everybody and their mom knew. And this one was not that. It was in fact a very different kind of story. And I am not the biggest fan of true crime. I went through a phase like most girls do, and most of the time during the summer is when I'll go through my true crime phase, and usually it involves a lot of rotten mango. When I first stumbled upon a YouTube video that the thumbnail showed a teenage girl holding index cards, it kind of reminded me of the 2010s, and it was posted in the 2010s, where people would do Draw My Lives or just like silly little day in the life videos. And so that's what I expected. Of course, I was too dumb not to read what was on the cards, and instead I was greeted by silence and just her flipping through a bunch of cards faster than the last, and it was a cry for help, basically. That video was filmed by Amanda Todd and posted on September 7th, 2012. There was no narration, there was no music. It was literally just her sitting there with a series of paper cards, confessions, if you will, written out and then thrust upon the global stage. Within a month of that video being posted, the world learned that Amanda, who at the time was 15-year-old, had taken her own life. She lived in British Columbia in Canada, and her death was not an isolated tragedy. It was a culmination of relentless cyber harassment, a campaign that was orchestrated by an anonymous figure who was under the alias Tyler Boo. The fallout rippled far beyond YouTube, and it dragged an entire hidden corner of the internet out into the spotlight. To understand how one single screenshot could ruin a teenager's life, which is what happened to Amanda, we have to travel back to the early 2010s. A time where live streaming was not as monitored as it is now. So the people live streaming the chats, there was very little moderation and no people monitors, right? So it was still the Wild West out there. So platforms like Blog TV, Stickam, early versions of Twitch, they offered the live streaming with almost zero moderation. So chats were open, anonymous, as they are now, except for sometimes, like with 4chan, you don't even need to get an account, right? And it was basically just a breeding ground for any mischief that you could imagine. So Amanda, at the time, only 12-ish, she was about to go into her 7th grade year, so she was either 12 or 13. She logged on to a generic live streaming site. A lot of people believe that it was Blog TV, but we're not entirely too sure at that point specifically. And she was a fresh face. She was filming to the tune of 200 viewers who wanted to share her love of singing and makeup. But the chat, however, started to become an unrelenting chorus of lecherous, or lewd, if you don't know the other word, prompts. A split-second decision later, Amanda's webcam was exposed to hundreds of strangers, and it captured more than she probably intended. And within seconds, a screenshot which, as we'll learn in the community that we are going to talk about, are known as caps, was snatched, saved, and then would soon be weaponized. So the term capping is a grotesque word, but it's a grotesque place of the internet that emerged in those early streaming days. A capped image or video was a screenshot or small clip of a victim who was caught in a compromising position. The individuals who actively seek out these moments are known as cappers. Their modus operandi was very formulaic. First, they join a live stream and seed the chat with encouragement and seed the person on the other side with encouragement to do something that they wouldn't normally do. Almost all of the time, these victims were minors. As soon as the victim complies, they capture an image or a short video. And sometimes it ended there. However, most of the time, it did not. Then the capper would send the image or short clip to the person, the victim, and they would either request things like money, or in Amanda's case, they would request things like private performances. And if the victim refused, the cap would be sent en masse to pretty much everyone they knew. Friends, classmates, family, you name it. Every person in their life was going to see this. And Tyler Boo was the textbook example of a capper. He didn't just take advantage of Amanda's slip, he actively engineered Amanda's slip, pushing Amanda across a line that she probably never would have crossed on her own. And when she refused his subsequent commands for private performances, he unleashed a torrent of the captured material across her social circles, forcing her family to eventually move. So this happened multiple times, and turning every new school into a battlefield that Amanda would have to face with whispers and loneliness, basically. So if these cappers were like foot soldiers, then there was one YouTube channel that was acting as the control room, or the war room, if you will. And that channel was known as the Daily Capper. So it was launched on June 20th, 2010, and the videos were about 5 minutes long, and it ran weekly for just about a year. So it was narrated by a robotic text-to-speech voice using clips from an old Crashbox segment. It was basically a daily news segment, and they took and muted clips like that and dubbed over it with this text-to-speech voice. So in each episode, the host would celebrate the week's epic wins, which is very 2010s of them, flashing screenshots of the minors. Again, oftentimes they were 13, 14 years old, and announcing the names of the cappers who had secured the best material.
Blog TV this week, including the shower with Chadine and her friend. Here with another story.
It was a twisted highlight reel. A perverse version of a sports highlight, except for the sport was sexual exploitation, and all the players were children. The absurdity of the content was only matched by the horror of it. By cataloging these crimes, the Daily Capper had inadvertently created a digital dossier. Basically, they had created a list of all of their top dogs that the investigators later used to triangulate the key members of the capping community, including Amanda's capper, Tyler Boo. When Amanda's video went viral, it amassed millions of views in the first couple of days. law enforcement in British Columbia launched the investigation. Detectives combed through chat logs, IP addresses, and, crucially, the archives of the Daily Capper. Because the show listed specific dates, victims' ages, it gave investigators a temporal map of where, when, how caps were being made. And they eventually pinpointed Tyler Boo to a real name, Aiden Coben, a Dutch-Turkish national. The case cracked open the broader network of cappers. He was tried in Canada for the crimes against Amanda Todd, and he was sentenced to 13 years in prison, which a lot of people felt like was a slap on the wrist for everything that he had done. But of course, that was only the sentence for Amanda Todd, and actually he got less. I think he got 11 years in prison in his home country for a bunch of other things that he did regarding capping and also other forms of child exploitation. And in December of 2023, a Dutch court converted these sentences to 6 years consecutive, since they had been tried in 2 countries. So, six years. And that was, I mean, to be fair, like, that's 10 years after he was arrested. So he's already served a lot of time, but I don't know that a person like that should ever be let out of prison because of the crimes that they've committed. It's heinous. It's disgusting. So it is easy to think that Amanda Todd is just a tragic footnote in the margins of internet history. A cautionary tale that we teach kids, right? But the reality is more unsettling. And that's because the capping ecosystem did not die out after this major trial and this major unearthing. They didn't disappear after the case. They simply migrated and learned how they got caught in the first place and how to do better next time. A 2022 report from the Canadian Centre of Cyber Safety found that while live stream platforms now have automated moderation systems and big Twitch streamers, they have like hired moderators for their streams. The underlying psychology of cappers stays relatively the same. They thrive off of anonymity, the thrill of winning, and the praise that comes with it, or even receiving monetary tips. So if you're watching this and feel the urge to share your own story, please do it in a safe space. I'm not sure that the internet is always the safest. It's definitely not the safest space all of the time. Reach out to a trusted adult, a counselor who will have to tell your parents if it is serious enough. Just remember that those working at your school are mandatory reporters, and if they hear something that has happened or is happening to you that is detrimental to your mental health or your physical health, they must report it to either your parents, the people in charge of you, your guardian, whatever that may be, or the authorities. So just keep that in mind. If you do not feel like your parents are the safe space, then probably don't go to a counselor either. But you can always go to a reputable hotline. I am going to put some in the description if you feel like you need to reach out to one. I know this was a heavy topic, but I felt like it was a topic that needed to be discussed. And yeah, the internet can be a dark place, but it can still be the beacon of hope that we all want it to be if we choose to make it that way. The internet will never be perfect, but those of us on it and those of us making a living or trying to make a living off of it can at least spread awareness, use our voice, use our platform in any way we can. I'm also going to link all of my sources that I use below. If you're interested in doing any more research yourself, there is a lot that I didn't cover, and there's probably a lot from a daily capper that's not in here because I have to go through the Internet Archives to make sure that all of my information is correct. So I'm just gonna leave you with that, and I will see you next time here, hopefully with a brighter topic. Bye guys.